Next on the list, we have Mr. David Wolfenden, CEO of Eden Savings, who will shed light on the topic, the Metaverse, a game changer for personal finances. David is a serial entrepreneur, and he has worked on startups since he was the young age of 15 years old. He is a technical founder and has a passion for building new products. David has a keen interest in gamification, fintech, blockchain, tech, AI, and also XR. Please put your hands together for this new change maker.
Thank you, everyone, for having me. It's lovely to see everyone here. My name is David Wolfenden. As she said, I'm a founder and CEO of Eden. And at Eden, basically, we're building a gamified financial platform. So when I saw this topic on how the metaverse is going to impact personal finance, I jumped right on it because we're working right in that gap there. So yeah, to introduce the topic today, we're going to be talking about the metaverse, which is a big buzzword right now, and we'll get to a definition in a moment. And we're going to talk about how that's going to impact the world of personal finance. Okay, so I want to start with a common definition before we go into anything, because this keyword, metaverse, is thrown around really, really frequently right now. I know startups and VCs love to whip this thing around, and I think we should establish like a common definition before we go on. So I'm going to use Matthew Ball's definition for the metaverse. I like this one because it doesn't really assume a whole lot. I'll read it out for you, for everyone. A massively scaled and interoperable network of real-time rendered 3D virtual worlds that can be experienced synchronously and persistently by an effectively unlimited number of users with an individual sense of presence and with continuity of data such as identity, history, entitlements, objects, communications, and payments. I really like this definition because it doesn't assume a lot. It's worth noting that there's no mention of blockchain or VR in this definition, which I like. You'll see companies will define metaverse slightly differently to fit their product lineups, and that's another reason that I like this one, is it's not biased to any certain product lineup. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the metaverse's history before we look into how it impacts personal finance. So the term metaverse was actually coined by the novel Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. Way back, I believe it was published in 1998. And then we're all familiar with more modern interpretations of this, like Ready Player One and The Matrix. And the most contemporary developments of the metaverse actually come from the gaming space. So video games are really pushing this tech forward and enabling it. One of the key things in that definition was persistent and 3D and an unlimited number of users, which is technically very difficult to achieve. And we're getting closer and closer because of the gaming industry. So that's kind of like the history and how it's grown from just its initial conception in Snow Crash through to actually getting really close to working versions of what Neil Stephenson at least would have seen as a metaverse in video games today. So let's look at some of the demands of personal finance in this hypothetical metaverse as we get closer and closer to it. So users within this virtual world are going to need to pay each other and pay vendors. And I think it's important to note that there's no country or geographical bounds on the metaverse. So a personal finance program would need to be incredibly flexible in currencies, both cryptocurrencies, even though it's not a necessity, and different fiat currencies potentially as well. Also, non-currency goods would need to be able to be transacted really frictionlessly as well. So whatever the personal finance provider is for the metaverse, they'll need to be extremely frictionless and well integrated into all of these different worlds that people will be exploring and transacting in. They'll also need to be able to save. So I think it's an interesting question to think, what is saving going to look like when everything is 3D and virtual? Right now, our personal finance apps are incredibly numerical and rather bland, especially for people who are existing in games and in this 3D hyper-engaging space. So that's something that we really want to look at. Also investing. So how are people going to invest when half of their time is spent in a video game-like world? What is that going to look like? Is that going to be along the lines of what we're seeing now with NFTs and cryptocurrencies? Potentially, because they're so easily transactable on a game-like platform. But whatever it ends up being, we need a personal finance company or providers that are really well integrated with those different investment vehicles that are native to the metaverse as we defined previously. They're also going to need to be able to track all of this across the different universes within the metaverse. In different worlds, it's going to need to be trackable so you can see all of your different virtual goods, all of your different assets, all of your investments, your savings, your transactions within different vendors and to different players. Is going to need to be really easily visible by whatever your virtual metaverse bank is. Okay, so where are we now with all of this? If we look at the personal finance space, I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. It's very numerical, very bland. The younger generation, in particularly Gen Z, very young millennials, are finding traditional finance platforms incredibly overwhelming, and they make them very anxious because they're so contrasted to what we're used to. So video games, something that's really highly engaging and has a lot of psychology built into it. So personal finance still has a really long way to go to catch up to the developments that are happening in the gaming world, in the cryptocurrency world, and in the metaverse as it's being birthed. And as for the metaverse, that's still very much in its infancy. I think I touched on it a little bit earlier, but there are a lot of technical developments that need to happen. So networking is a major one. We need to get our network speeds much, much faster than they are right now. And computing power also needs to go through the roof compared to where we're at right now. So we're getting there, and like I said, the video gaming industry is pushing this forward really, really quickly. Graphics processing units are developing really fast. I mean, the most recent release from NVIDIA more than doubles their processing power since their last release, which is really exciting to see. So hopefully we continue on that, and we'll be there. Most people say within 5 to 10 years we'll have common computing power enough to start to render some of these more full-scale metaverse applications that are still hypothetical right now. So personal finance has a long way to go. Metaverse is still has a little bit further as well, but we're getting there really, really quickly, and the pace seems to be increasing. So in conclusion, metaverse is certainly going to change the way that personal finance works. I think we need to start building out products that integrate more natively with a borderless 3D gamified kind of environment, because that's where our population is going, and that's where a lot of money and development is going. And I think from the personal finance sector, we definitely need to look at that as an exciting opportunity and start really embracing it, because that's something that we're not doing on the whole right now. I'd love to open it up to questions. I know Metaverse is kind of like a really it's a subject that people have a lot of questions on, so I wanted to leave some time here for people to just ask. This is something that I work on every day, all day, so I'm more than happy to ask any questions that anyone has. Nope. Cool. All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.